Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hey, what's up? This is Nolan Fisher, aka the POV channel. Today we are on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and there's a very specific reason I'm here. In this canyon is the site of one of the craziest deaths that ever occurred in the Grand Canyon. In August 2001, 2 hikers in the Grand Canyon were reported missing after they failed to return home 10 days after their permits ended. One of these hikers was George Mancuso, a dedicated and experienced photographer. The other hiker was Linda Brehmer. She had responded to George's advertisement in an Arizona newspaper looking for female subjects willing to pose naked in the Grand Canyon. The place where they went missing was in the Little Colorado Canyon, a desolate and largely unseen corner of the Grand Canyon, and extremely sacred to the Hopi Native American religion. The only clue the searchers had as to the whereabouts of these missing people was a note in Linda's journal at an abandoned campsite expressing her desire to wash her hair in an emerald pool. The mysterious circumstances around their death and the strange way their bodies were recovered compelled me to come visit this place and document the journey. It's detailed in this book called Over the Edge. When I was reading this book, the story of Linda Brehmer and George Mancuso was so wild and interesting to me that I had to come out and check out this place. And now it's just me, and time to go down the canyon and check it out. Packed up. I have tons of water with me because a lot of the water down at the bottom is salty, and we're about to be climbing down sheer cliffs with it, so it's going to be interesting. We are about to descend 2,800 vertical feet. The trail literally just plummets off this cliff I'm standing on. So we just came all the way from the tippy top of that rim, climbed all the way down the rocks. We are retracing a route that George Mancuso took many, many times in his life. He was said to be so obsessed with the Grand Canyon that he was spending 1 week out of every month of his life for almost 20 years in this part of the Grand Canyon. It's unlike anywhere else I've ever been. Also, hundreds of Hopis have come down this path on their rite of passage as an adolescent going into an adult. Almost there. This trail is so gnarly and everything is spiky. Even the rocks are like super sharp. Everything slides too. I love it. River's right there. That's the helipad. So we are almost at the bottom. Started at 10 a.m. and is now 1:24. All right, we made it to the river. The sun's not in, so you can't see how blue it is, but It's just baby blue. It's just unreal. Yeah, it's pretty much like salt water. And it looks wonderful and inviting to swim in, right? Well, this is the bottom of the river. Oh, there's a helipad and all this stuff here because a lot of scientific researchers come down to the bottom of this canyon to study an endemic and endangered species that lives down here called the humpback chub. And it lives only in this part of the canyon. And it's a pretty tough little fish because this water is just filled with salt and silt. Absolutely gorgeous. But I'm gonna set up camp. It's only 2:30, so if the sun stays in the right direction, I actually might go check out the Emerald Pool. Up there. Made it to the bottom of the canyon. I am happy to be done hiking down steep, jagged rocks. Sand sucks to put your tent up on, but it's the only option we got. Home sweet home. All right, we're gonna go see if we can find the Emerald Pool because we still have a lot of daylight left. It's only 2:30. And my little section of the canyon's shaded, so I want to get into the sun. Didn't anticipate to be going to the Emerald Pool on the first day, but hey, we're doing it. Wow. Unreal. So the water's this color because the springs that feed into this river about 10 miles up are filled with sediment and minerals. You can't drink it either. It's totally salty, but you can admire it. And that's what matters. According to my Google Maps navigation skills, if we follow this water up, it should lead us to the Emerald Pool. So this is it. This is the place where George Mancuso and Linda Brehmer were killed. They were standing in this exact place taking photographs, presumably of Linda naked, when a wall of water came down this canyon and swept them to their deaths. Nobody knows the exact details of their last moments, but all we know is that Linda Brehmer's body was found wrapped around a tree down this canyon. And George Mancuso's body, he was swept 8 miles down to where the confluence of the Little Colorado and the Colorado meet. We don't know if he died of drowning or of getting battered and slammed against rocks, trees, and bushes, and any of the things that would happen when you're caught in a massive, violent flash flood. Now, some people believe the death of George and Linda Brehmer was completely avoidable. The main way to avoid this is to check the weather and make sure that there's no chance of rain anywhere within the vicinity of your watershed when you're in a huge canyon. George was famous for not doing this and putting himself in very dangerous situations during the height of monsoon season. It started raining that day heavily south of here in Arizona. And Linda and George weren't aware of how bad the weather was. Now, there's another reason their death could have been avoidable, and this is according to the Hopi people. Linda, the night before she was killed, wrote in her journal that she was going to visit the Emerald Pool because she wanted to wash her hair. Linda had no idea that the first thing the Hopi people do upon the death of a loved one is to wash their hair. When she said she wanted to wash her hair in this pool, may have been sentencing herself or committing herself to death without even knowing it, based on Hopi religious practices. It's a horribly sad story. They were both two great people, and unfortunately, it seems that they came into contact with a force or a presence much greater than them in a religious sense, and also in the sense of the grandness and the magnitude and the power of the landscape here. That's why this is such an amazing story to me. It's so wild, after reading that book, to come here and actually see this in person myself. Now we are heading back down from the Emerald Pool, and man, I am so happy we found that. The sun was coming down through the canyon, and it was just lit up so beautifully. There's little waterfalls through the rocks and the boulders, which is so cool. For some reason, when you're camping, or at least out in nature, food tastes like 20 times better. Easy. So as the sun sets, I want to recap what was so interesting to me that I read in the book. 10 days after they were reported missing, search and rescue teams could still not find their bodies. The only clue that they had was an entry in Brehmer's journal saying that she wanted to wash her hair in the Emerald Pool, as I mentioned. The search and rescue teams had no idea where the Emerald Pool was before this. So they enlisted the help of a Hopi Native American seer. Her name was Theodora. Theodora, when asked to find the location of the bodies, put an X on a map she had never seen before directly on the Emerald Pool. But Theodora had no experience in the Salt Trail Canyon, had no experience in the surrounding area, and this is what led searchers to the location where Brehmer's body was found. So I just think it's such a fascinating story regarding how wild the series of events was that led to Linda and George's death, and then the process of discovering those bodies in this extremely remote and dangerous canyon. Tomorrow, I'm gonna hike down all the way to where the Little Colorado River meets the Grand Canyon, and we're going to find the place where George Mancuso's body came to rest after after the massive flash flood. Hope you found this interesting. Stay tuned for part 2. And look what we found.